start because this is the last panel, and I will have the opportunity of chairing it. To thank Marie-Claire for the opportunity of being here and address you all. Perhaps I will have to leave before the session ends because I have a plane to catch, and I'm so sorry about that, but I didn't realize the times beforehand. For me, because this is my first time sharing with you this Thomas More Association, has been an absolutely great opportunity. Eugenio has been insisting for months, he's very persuasive, that I should come. And now I see what he meant. This is an absolutely excellent atmosphere of work, but also very human contact. And, I thank you for that. If you allow me to quote Shakespeare's with the fifth, we're a band of brothers, we happy few. And I do hope, as I have the opportunity to say to Marie-Claire, I hope perhaps in a couple of years we will be able to welcome you all in the beautiful city of Life, United Nations World Heritage Site, 15th century palace, and I think that's the perfect atmosphere. I mean, not kind of compete with Paris, but the perfect atmosphere for the conference. So we do hope at least we can make it happen. We'll start with Professor Eugenio Olivares Merino. Eugenio Olivares Merino is well known by most of you. He teaches medieval and early modern literature at the University of Jaén. He's also the director of an online MA in English Studies, quite successful with only 75 spots and more than 400 students applying from all over the world. He's also an extremely active member of this More y Studies Association, so you know that perfectly well. And he's the author of, I think, the first translation into Spanish of Margaret Roper's letters, and also a biography in Spanish, edited by Real, which is the Spanish publisher specializing in Thomas More. And he's currently, of course, the research manager of a project on Thomas More and Spain. And he will be telling us about, well known for us, humanist, probably for you as well, Arias Montano, Thomas More, and someone who, in his style, he mysteriously calls a certain Englishman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. I'm really happy to be here because Paris is a lovely city. This is crowded with good friends, old ones and new ones, and more and more interest I see in the figure of Thomas More. So let me start by saying that this paper and the ones that have been already presented by my colleagues, Jesus López Peláez, Inmaculada, Ureña, and the one to be presented by Dr. Luciano García, are the first results of our 4-year research project by the title Thomas More and Spain, 16th and 17th centuries Ideological and Textual Construction, a project that has been funded by the Ministerio de Industria and so of the Spanish government. This project, which also comes with the support and eventual collaboration of Elizabeth McCutcheon, Marie-Claire Philippot, as well as Travis Courtwright, Romo Lakowski, and Jerry Wergemer, aims to analyze the relation existing between Thomas More and the universal monarchy of the first Spanish Habsburgs, Charles I, Philip II, Philip III, Philip IV, along the 16th and 17th centuries. When Thomas More was elected Chancellor of England, Charles V's imperial diplomacy saw him as a defender of Queen Catherine, the emperor's aunt, against Henry VIII's challenge to the validity of their union. This is an issue that I dealt with 2 years ago in the same forum, but in a different, in the same city, yes. Dozens of English Catholics fled to the Low Countries, and a second wave came after Elizabeth I's coronation in 1558. From among the exiles, many joined the Society of Jesus and secretly returned to England, only to be martyrs of a mission in which the interests of Spain and religious zeal were often crisscrossed. The safety of the Catholic refugees in the continent was short-lived, as the Dutch revolt forced them to cross borders or to move with the success or failure of Philip II's tercios. Elizabeth I did not stay uninvolved. Her support to the Dutch Protestants was the threshold of the Armada expedition, 1588. Philip III, on his part, tried to restore the Spanish rule in the Netherlands, but in the long term, he came to be involved in the 30 Years' War. After him, Philip IV finally accepted the independence of the 7 provinces when he signed the Peace of Westphalia, 1648. I believe that within the frame of Anglo-Spanish relations during the period, Thomas More, or his memory, or his representation, played a role that came to be highly relevant in the cultural and geopolitical evolution of both communities. For this purpose, our project will analyze a wide corpus of historical and literary texts in order to address the following long-term targets, 3 targets. In the first place, to clarify the image that Thomas More had both of the Spanish Empire and Spaniards. In More's works, and in his personal relations with Catherine of Aragon, Charles V, or Juan Luis Vives, the English humanist might be said to have different faces, both as a writer and as a public character. On the one hand, More admired Spanish culture, its military supremacy, and its staunch defense of Catholicism, both against Lutherans and Turks. At the same time, as an Englishman, he saw Spaniards as the other, both ethnically and culturally. The second target is to analyze the impact that More's thought and life had in Spain, particularly after his death in 1535, not only as author and scholar, but also as an icon of religious and political resistance to Protestant England. Quevedo's admiration for the honesty of the Englishman is well known, and so are Jerónimo de Medinillas' translation of Utopia, as addressed by Immaculada yesterday, or El Tomás Moro by humanist Fernando de Herrera. The third target is to deepen into the genesis of Thomas More's idealization, a process that did not take place only in England or in peninsular Spain, but particularly in the Netherlands, a territory under the crown of Spain until the Peace of Westphalia, as I said before. It was there that the English Catholics, many of which were More's relatives and friends, took shelter during the 1540s and the 1560s. There, Stapleton's biography of More was composed. Around the latter's figure, a Catholic identity in the exile and against the Tudors was built. And there it was a fruitful field of cultural exchange in between Spanish humanists going to the Netherlands and those English exiles that were also there. Now let me focus on the topic of my paper, which is this man here, Benito Arias Montano. Let me introduce you to this man, a Spanish humanist, theologian, and philosopher whose learning also included Latin, Greek, Arab, Hebrew, and Syrian. A young member of our research team of our project, Profesora Cinta Zunino from the University of Jaén, was actually the one who brought my attention to this humanist that she has for long been studying. From there, I took it, and I'm going to amplify some specific points of connection in between Arias Montano and Thomas More himself. After being ordained priest, Montano, his reputation as theologian enabled him to participate at the Council of Trent. Back to Spain, King Philip II appointed him as his chaplain in 1566. Even when there are significant lacunae in his biography, the period of his life that is relevant for this study is fairly well known, and it is marked by his journey and stay at the Netherlands. From 1568 to 1572, in fact there was later a second stay, but I will focus on the first one. So from 1568 to 1572, commissioned by Philip II to carry out an impressive enterprise, a new edition of the so-called Polyglot Bible, which eventually came to be known as the Antwerp Bible or Biblia Regia. Arias Montano left Spain heading for the Low Countries on the 22nd of April 1568. In less than a week, he was in Galway. Due to a storm, he visited Irish monasteries, and his Irish tour ended in Dublin, where he set sail for Chester. Once there, he travelled to Dover, where he finally embarked heading for Calais. In the 6 days he spent in England, he visited Oxford and London. In his letter to Spanish King Philip II, he writes, there is a great I'm going to translate, paraphrase this letter. There is a great expectation, or I have been able to notice a great expectation both from Catholics and non-Catholics in the University of Oxford and also in London at the forthcoming Polyglot Bible. I don't know if he's overstating things, whether or not these Englishmen were really aware that a new edition of the Polyglot Bible was going to be printed, but, or maybe they were looking forward to it once Arias Montano mentioned that that was his mission. According to the letter, to this letter to the king, everybody was aware of the future printing of the new Bible, whose promoter was none else than the very king of Spain. Montano, however, did not disclose his link with the Mecenas of the project. He did not mention that he was actually on a king's mission. He didn't say, I am here, the king's envoy to carry out this project. Probably because he might be afraid. Even assuming a certain sense of brotherhood among men of letters, I mean the Oxford dons and so, with Arias Montano, he was a Spaniard. He was a man coming from the country England would eventually consider, or already considered, its worst enemy. Truth be said, Oxford and St. John in particular, St. John's College in particular, had strong Catholic sympathies, but after Elizabeth's crowning in 1558, many Catholics had lost their chairs and fellowship, and the situation was further complicated since in 1568, the very year of Montano's visit to Oxford, it was the year of Anne Stuart rebellion and imprisonment in England, and a clear connection in between the aspirations to the throne of England on the part of Anne Stuart and King Philip II were under suspicion by the English government. In any case, maybe the Spaniard came to know that it was in Oxford that Thomas More had spent 2 years of his life, studying Latin and Greek under Thomas Linacre and William Rosey. Later on, Henry VIII would name him, More, High Steward for the Universities of Oxford and Cambridge. A curious coincidence I would like to report as well. Also in 1568, the very year of Arias Montano's really short visit to Oxford, a young fellow of St. John's College took the Holy Orders, nominally as a deacon in the Anglican Church, and his name was Edmund Campion. You may see here the man in a not very comfortable position because he has been hanged and stabbed. So, his meeting with Arias Montano, Campion's meeting with Arias Montano at Oxford is a fanciful, though yet theoretically possible conjecture. Campion, however, is not that certain Englishman in the title of my paper. All right, so Arias Montano arrived at Antwerp in May 1568, thus beginning the most brilliant period in his academic career. Christophe Plantin, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Plantin, thank you. Martin was the appointed printer by the King Philip II, and he had already started working for the Polyglot Bible. The Spaniard thus had been agreed would supervise the edition of this Bible, which came to be printed in 5 languages. That's the reason why the Polyglot Bible, the Bible in many languages. Arias Montano's work in the Low Countries was prolific, and he managed to publish several works of his own, apart from being working really hard in the Polyglot Bible. One of these works, in particular, has a specific relevance for the present study. And the title of this work is Virorum Doctorum de Disciplinis Benemerentium Effigies, 44. In other words, the pictures, the portraits of 44 learned men in the different fields of knowledge. This is a very non-literal translation. Well, this is a collection of 44 portraits of learned men from different nationalities and different historical moments, accompanied by a 4-line text. The effigies were elaborated by Philip Gall, and Arias Montano wrote the 2 Latin distichs below each of these images. Right. The names in the collection, all the names in this collection, in this array, have something in common. They are Christian humanists, even when holding different religious and ideological perspectives, which gives proof of the cosmopolitan nature of the work and the author's open-mindedness. One of these illustrious men portrayed is Thomas More, whose effigy you can see here. The words below, "An memorem doctum magis antemore fidelem an fortem dubito nam omnia summa tenes, quae doctrina fuit pietas quae pectore in isto, exitus doquit quem subis intrepidus." My translation. I hesitate more whether I should remember you more for your learning, your fidelity, or your fortitude, since you exceed in them all. That doctrine, that piety that you cherished within your chest, all was shown by the end you bravely faced. I do not know how familiar Arias Montano was with the English humanists, but it must be assumed that he had heard of Utopia, published as early as 1516. Learning, piety, and courage are More's prominent virtues, as Arias Montano puts it. The presence of Thomas More, and also of John Fisher, in this long list of humanists might simply be a wink to all the English Catholics in exile, but more properly a praise to the spiritual commitment of a layman. Arias Montano stresses More's loyalty to his learned conscience as the only cause of his death, omitting any valid judgment on his infamous execution with a very neutral exitus, the way out, the end. The central issue at the basis of this paper are the different ways in which Arias Montano came to know about Thomas More. The fame of the English humanist has spread in Western Europe as diplomat, scholar, and fervent Catholic, especially after the general commotion that followed his death. Montano's short visits to Oxford and London might have brought more to Montano's mind, but there is one character that surely helped the Spaniard to build up, let's say, a more human, maybe intimate portrait of More. This is the certain Englishman. I'm getting to my point. But for this, I need to return again to the polyglot Bible. In the preface to the readers, in the first volume of the Polyglot Bible, Arias Montano expresses his gratitude to all those who have helped him in any way to culminate this magnificent achievement. Among these names he includes Clemente Anglo. Philosophia et medicina doctore, qui in isque regionibus propter Christianam religionem exulat, exhibitum Pentateuchi Greci ex THOME mori bibliotheca elegantissimum exemplar. So who is this Englishman? Arias Montano is thanking an Englishman, Clement, for having shown a most elegant copy of the Greek Pentateuch, originally owned by Thomas More himself. Obviously, this Clement, the Englishman, doctor in medicine and philosophy, as described by the Spaniard, is no other than John Clement, forced to flee to the Netherlands because of his religious convictions, always referred to as Clemens Anglus in continental texts, as showed by, in an article by North. He had been one of the tutors of More's children and belonged to his closest circle. It was in the Low Countries while working on the Antwerp Bible that Arias Montano most probably met him. The story of the manuscript that Montano and Planting borrowed from Clement has been narrated elsewhere, not by myself. The Clements occupied the barge when More and his family moved to the Chelsea household, and maybe the future Chancellor left the said manuscript there for the newcomers. Be it as it may, this manuscript that ended up in Clement's hands and eventually was used by Arias Montano to compare it with other texts in the elaboration of the Polyglot Bible, is in fact an octateuch, not the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, but octateuch meaning the first 8 books of the Old Testament, which, as far as I know, is still kept in Glasgow University Library, manuscript Gen 322. This is an image from a manuscript. As you can see, something is written here.
Yes.
It says something like, well, not something like, it says, Johannes Clemens Medicus dedit collegio corporis Christi Oxoniensi, maybe, ut oret pro fidelibus defunctis anno Domini 1563, October the 7th. So according to this handwritten note, written by someone, maybe by Clement himself. In 1563, Clement gave this manuscript, the Octateuch, to his own college at Oxford. Thus, Arias Montano would have had access to this document precisely when he visited the city. But Clement was not there anymore. Most critics assume, however, that even if it had been Clement's intention to send the manuscript to Oxford, this was never clearly fulfilled, and the manuscript probably never went as far as the university. Probably Clement took it with him to the Low Countries, and from there he might be thinking about sending it to Oxford, but then he came to meet this Spaniard who might be interested in the Jaén 22. So, I do want to postulate that Arias Montano had a certain relation with John Clement, Planting, the editor, being the link between both. It is well known that John Clement had frequent dealings with book printers, selling them books he had carried along from England every now and then, and his familiarity with this Planting is well attested, and John Clement, as his family were in real need of money, as it seems from another reference that I will make later on. Further than this, there is another reference to John Clement and More in the Polyglot Bible. In the 8th and final volume, Arias Montano included a note about the Anglican Psalter. I think this document is better known than the previous Pentateuch, Octateuch, sorry. This Psalteri Anglicani Exemplari Animadversio is a critical evaluation of a manuscript of the Psalter in Hebrew that the same John Clement had also provided, one which Arias Montano considered of not particular interest or relevance, thus opposing the opinion of the powerful Bishop Willem Lindanus, who considered this Anglican Psalter to be an extremely valuable piece. As Arias Montano would show, it was in fact recent and quite worthless in many aspects. This undermined Lindanus' scholarly reputation and started a real dialectical war between the two, Arias Montano and Lindanus. John Clement's opinion or response to the negative evaluation of this document that he possessed has not come to us. All right. All in all, I do think it is not a mere coincidence that Montano's references to Thomas More are always together with those to John Clement, are paralleled precisely by the former's inclusion in the Spaniards' Virorum Doctorum. So we have two references to John Clement and to Thomas More in the Polyglot Bible, and also his portrait in the Virorum Doctorum, to which I have just made reference. Let me simply mention another context which might provide a bigger picture, a background for Montano's approach to Thomas More. Leaving aside the editorial or academic circles, as a priest, Arias Montano had received from the Duke of Alba, who was the highest political authority in the Low Countries under Philip II, he had received from the Duke of Alba the task of helping English Catholics in exile. Those English Catholics mostly living in Louvain and Douai. For this task, he was helped by an Englishman by the name of Frank Englefield. It is reasonable to assume that Montano would every now and then visit these cities where the English exiles had settled down. Clement himself had lived in Louvain, but too early to get acquainted there with the Spaniards. In any case, In a document preserved at the Archivo de Simancas, there is a list of those English exiles who were to receive this financial help from the Spanish monarchy, and the name of John Clement is explicitly mentioned. Well, to conclude, I want to postulate that Arias Montano met really Clemens Angulus in the Netherlands while working for the Polyglot Bible, and I fancy that they both talk about the dead English humanist. After his return to Spain, Arias Montano was put in charge of the library of El Escorial, magnificent library of King Philip II. His contacts with Planting and other European printers made him the most fitting candidate for the job. These contacts Montano kept even in his final years of retirement in the city of Seville, where he died in 1598. Certainly, it is not mere coincidence that a friend of Arias Montano, the Sevillian humanist Fernando de Herrera, should publish More's first biography in Spanish 4 years after Arias Montano's death in 1592. It has been argued, mainly by the Spanish scholars López Estrada, that Herrera based his text, his biography of More, on Nicholas Sanders' De Origine ad Progressus Schismatis Anglicani, 1586, or Stapleton's Tres Tomes, specifically the section devoted to Thomas More. And my point is that Arias Montano was instrumental in this, probably because he managed to get a copy for his friend, because he had so many contacts in the Low Countries, and actually we have a reference to a kind of invoice of Arias Montano in which there are several books that he had ordered from the Low Countries and to the bookshop, or to the printing business of Planting. So I very much assume that the books that Fernando Herrera used for his biography were the ones provided by Arias Montano. Thank you very much.